A soldier's promise. Cardboard groaned a protest under Mac's insistent packing as he shoved another pair of thick woolen socks into his duffel. Think they'll have elbow room in those barracks, Daisy? He looked up, cheeks flushed with anticipation. 3 months, Daisy girl. 3 months, then I'm back, tougher, sharper, ready to finally build that life we've dreamt of. Daisy leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, a tiny crease marring the smooth perfection of her lipstick. Right, Billy. Sounds wonderful. Her voice lacked any upward inflection, a stark contrast to the electric current that seemed to surge through him. He misread her lack of enthusiasm as plain nerves. Hey, don't you fret that pretty little head of yours. I'll write every single day. Tell you all about the exercises, the food, the guys. It'll be quite the experience. He winked, yanking the duffel shut with a triumphant grunt. Think of it as like a super long camping trip. Just with more barking. Daisy's frown deepened almost invisibly. Camping was definitely not on her list of top 10 activities. She pictured him, grimy and perspiring, and a shiver traced her spine. Just be careful, okay? And don't be reckless. Reckless? Me? Perish the thought. He chuckled, seizing her hands and drawing her close. I'm doing this for us, Daisy. For our future together. A soldier's vow, remember. I'll make you swell with pride. He kissed her, a fleeting peck that didn't quite connect with her gaze. Later that evening, the VFW hall swam in a miasma of stale beer and frying oil. Mac, ringed by his friends, was the undisputed star. Each hearty slap on the back and raised glass filled him with a comforting sense of belonging. Even old Mr. Henderson, the town's notorious curmudgeon, thumped him on the shoulder and mumbled something about serving the flag. You show 'em what Mac's made of, bellowed Big Tony, hoisting his beer. Our boy's gonna be a damn hero. Mac's face split into a wide, genuine grin. He felt indestructible, ready for anything the army could throw at him. He caught Daisy's eye across the crowded room. She was deep in conversation with Brenda from the diner, her face alive, a real smile lighting her features for practically the first time all day. But the instant their eyes met, the smile flickered, replaced by that familiar, almost undetectable, something. Something he couldn't quite put his finger on. He dismissed it with a mental shrug. She was probably just a bag of nerves. The night drew on, lubricated by cut-rate beer and the staunch fellowship of small-town life. As the last of his buddies lurched out into the cool night air, Mac gathered Daisy close. See? Everyone's so proud. This will be amazing, Daisy. Amazing for us both. Daisy sighed, the sound barely audible over the lingering echoes of camaraderie. Yeah, Billy, she murmured, her voice low, like secrets. Amazing. But as she looked up at him, her eyes held a spark that had nothing to do with pride, or hope, or any of the things Mac thought he saw reflected back at him. It was something colder, sharper, and infinitely more perilous. It was resentment, simmering just below the surface, threatening to boil over. Golden cage. The silk slithered against Daisy's skin as she pirouetted in front of the antique mirror. Emerald green, it pulled around her ankles, catching the afternoon sun filtering through the sheer curtains. Stunning, she breathed, more to the reflection than to Mrs. Abernathy, who stood perched on a velvet stool, a pincushion bristling in her lap. Simply stunning. You've outdone yourself. Mrs. Abernathy beamed, her wrinkles deepening around her eyes. It suits you, dear. Brings out the green in your eyes. Your Billy will be speechless. Daisy chuckled, a brittle sound that didn't quite reach her eyes. Billy wouldn't be seeing this dress anytime soon. It was for the charity gala next month, the one she'd wrangled an invitation to through some casual networking at the country club. Billy wouldn't fit in there, not now. Maybe not ever. The weeks bled into each other in a montage of perfectly manicured nails, designer handbags, and champagne lunches. Daisy discovered a talent for finding vintage jewelry at estate sales, pieces she justified as investments, even as she wore them to cocktail parties. Salons became her sanctuary, the rhythmic hum of the hairdryer a soothing lullaby against the gnawing guilt. She told herself it was all temporary, a way to cope with Billy's absence. Making up for lost time, she reasoned. Years of holding back, of pinching pennies, were finally over. The phone rang, jarring her from a particularly decadent bubble bath. Billy. She glanced at the caller ID with a flicker of annoyance. He called too often. She let it go to voicemail. Later, she listened to the message while applying a shimmering gold eyeshadow. His voice was muffled, tired. He was talking about drills, about push-ups, about a sergeant with a voice like gravel. Daisy shivered, not with sympathy, but with a strange sort of revulsion. It was a world away from hers, a world she was rapidly leaving behind. She called him back later, much later, claiming she'd been at a spa appointment. "Oh, honey, I'm exhausted. They really worked me over. Maybe next week, we can talk longer." She kept her voice light, airy. Billy mumbled something about missing her, and Daisy felt a pang of something akin to guilt. But it was quickly smothered by the thrill of the upcoming gala, the emerald dress, the admiring glances she knew she would receive. The golden cage she was building felt surprisingly comfortable. Fuzzy math. The mud was a cold, clinging beast, sucking at Mac's boots with every step. He hauled himself over the warped wooden wall, splinters digging into his palms, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Daisy's face flashed in his mind, her perfectly applied lipstick, the way she tossed her head when she laughed. He pictured her waiting for him, radiant and proud, and the image fueled his aching muscles. He scrambled down the other side, ignoring the sting in his knee. Later, during a brief respite, Mac finally managed to snag a shaky phone connection. "Hey, baby. Missed you." "Mac. Oh, thank God. This antique show is killing me. The humidity is atrocious." Daisy's voice was breathless, more annoyed than affectionate. "Antique show? Thought you were going to help Mom with her garden. Changed my plans. This is much more lucrative." Mac frowned. "How's the account looking? Any word on that bonus check from the dealership?" A pause. "Oh, fine. Everything's fine. Don't you worry your handsome head about it. Just focus on becoming a super soldier." Her tone was airy, dismissive. "But I just wanted to make sure the transfer went through okay. And see if we could maybe put some aside for a new couch. This one's starting to sag something fierce." Daisy sighed dramatically. "Mac, seriously. I'm right in the middle of negotiating for a genuine Chippendale High boy. I can't possibly talk about finances right now. Talk to you later, sweetie. Love you." The line went dead. Mac stared at the phone, a knot tightening in his stomach. Daisy had never been this vague about money before. He shook his head, trying to dismiss his unease. Maybe he was just being paranoid. Boot camp was making him jumpy. That evening, Mac found himself polishing his boots next to Rodriguez, a wiry kid from El Pozo with a surprisingly philosophical bent. "Something's eating at you, Mac," Rodriguez observed, not looking up from his own task. Mac hesitated. "It's probably nothing. Just Daisy's been acting weird. Short with me on the phone. And she's dodging my questions about our savings." Rodriguez finally looked up, his dark eyes shrewd. "Trust your gut, man. A bad feeling is like a splinter. Ignore it, and it'll fester." He spat a stream of tobacco juice into a nearby can. "My grandma used to say, fuzzy math always adds up to trouble. Loose lips sink ships." Pete whistled, stepping into Daisy's apartment. "Mac, buddy, you landed yourself a queen. This place is swanky." Daisy, draped across a velvet chaise lounge in a silk robe, smiled languidly. "Just trying to make it a home." The air hung thick with the scent of expensive perfume and lilies. Pete sank into a plush armchair, admiring the cityscape visible through the enormous windows. Home sweet, ridiculously expensive home, more like. Later, phone pressed between his ear and shoulder as he juggled a beer and a half-eaten sandwich. Pete finally managed to get through to Billy. The connection crackled. "Mac. How's the army treating you, you big lug?" "Pete. Good to hear your voice. Brutal, but surviving. How's everything back home?" "Everything's good, man. Real good. Visited Daisy earlier. She's doing fantastic." "Yeah. That's good." Billy's voice was strained. He imagined Daisy alone in their cramped, slightly musty apartment, not lounging in velvet. Fantastic as in, she threw this massive party last week. Place was packed, catered food, the works. I didn't even know she knew that many people. Silence stretched on the line, punctuated by static. Billy's grip tightened on the receiver. Party? Yeah. Celebrating her new job, I think she said. Looked expensive, though. Real top-shelf booze. Anyway, gotta run. Drills start early. Keep your head down, Mac. The line went dead. Billy stared at the phone, the cheap plastic suddenly feeling heavy in his hand. Daisy, throwing expensive parties. A new job. She'd told him she was struggling to find anything, surviving on ramen and the little he sent home. He tried to rationalize it. Maybe a small get-together. Pete always exaggerated. Maybe a potluck. Daisy had always been good at stretching $1. But the image of catered food and top-shelf liquor gnawed at him. He tasted bile in the back of his throat. He tried calling Daisy, letting it ring and ring, his anxiety climbing with each unanswered pulse. He imagined her laughing, carefree, surrounded by strangers in a world he didn't recognize. A world paid for with what? The thought hung in the air, a dark cloud obscuring the already blurry horizon. He hung up. Something felt terribly, irrevocably wrong. The truth hurts. The computer lab vibrated with the muted thrum of dormant technology. Billy, his pulse a frantic drum solo against his ribs, slipped inside after swiping the borrowed keycard. A glacial gust of conditioned air assaulted him, prickling his skin. He adopted a furtive posture, feeling like a trespasser bathed in the clinical light. On one of the antique machines, the screen flickered to life with a reassuring sigh. With trembling fingers, he navigated to the bank's website. Daisy had always managed their money, he barely recalled the password. A desperate rummage through faded birthday greetings yielded the answer, scribbled on the back of one, the childish Daisy encircling the numerical code. Success. The page materialized, a bewildering labyrinth of figures and graphs. He located the savings account. The balance mocked him, a paltry sum, almost non-existent. A chilling dread seeped into his bones, paralyzing his extremities and constricting his breath. Clicking through the statements, the stark reality unfolded with grim precision. Regular, substantial withdrawals. Thousands vanished over the last half year. Each transaction bore Daisy's name. He stared, vision swimming. The lab's hum intensified, morphing into a cacophony in his ears. He fought the urge to howl, to obliterate the screen with a blow, but only a choked sound escaped him. Slumping back, the chair's plastic bit into his spine. How could she? How could she gaze at him, pledge eternal devotion, while systematically dismantling their shared future? The future he bled for, endured hardship for, so they could build a life together. The weight of the betrayal crashed over him, an unbearable burden. He squeezed his eyes shut, battling the surge of tears. He wouldn't crumble. Not here. Not now. He needed clarity. He needed a plan. He logged out, meticulously purging his digital footprints. No one could know he'd been here. Not yet. He swiped the card and stepped back into the hush of the night. The air hung heavy, stifling. He reeled back to the barracks, the image of the ravaged account burned into his memory. The truth festered, a corrosive acid eating away at his soul. Sergeant's counsel. The weight in Billy's chest manifested as a persistent ache. He discovered Sergeant Harrison outside the barracks, meticulously shining his boots. The rhythmic thwacker of the polishing cloth served as a stark counterpoint to the inner chaos swirling within Billy. "Sergeant, you got a moment?" At his words, Harrison glanced up. The usual flinty set of his features softened, almost imperceptibly. "McAllister. Something gnawing at you. Out with it." Billy hesitated, then the entire sorry saga spilled out in a rush. Daisy, the vanishing funds, his growing unease, the gut-wrenching sense of betrayal. He concluded, his voice thick, "I just don't know what to do, Sergeant." How could she? Harrison absorbed the confession in silence, his unwavering gaze fixed on the distant horizon. A low hum escaped his lips when Billy finally ran out of steam. "That's a tangled web, McAllister. A deeply personal one. Meaning Uncle Sam wants no part of it. But nothing. You come storming in, levying accusations of larceny against your wife, and word will circulate faster than KP Judy. Think that's going to bolster your chances of promotion, soldier? Though the words were firm, a flicker of something akin to compassion shone in Harrison's eyes. Billy's shoulders slumped. He hadn't considered the ramifications. So she just gets away with it. Nobody suggested that. We simply have to proceed with acumen. Flying off the handle will accomplish nothing. Harrison paused, his brow furrowed in thought. She believes she's pulled the wool over your eyes, correct? Sees you as a simpleton fresh out of training. Billy gave a miserable nod. Excellent. We'll exploit that. We require evidence, McAllister. Irrefutable, concrete evidence. Not mere suspicions. Suspicions are a luxury soldiers can't afford. Harrison rose, the gleaming boots reflecting the sun's afternoon rays. Think you can maintain the facade of ignorance a little longer? I think so. Good. Here's the play. You're going to contact Daisy. Lay it on thick with the endearments. Tell her you received a little bonus. A stipend for some specialized training. Tell her you intend to deposit it into the account. Observe her reaction. And if she transfers it out, then we've ensnared her. But we have to make it appear legitimate. A modest sum. Something plausible. And we need to trace the destination of those funds. I have a contact in finance. Keeps his record spotless, but he owes me a considerable debt. Harrison gave Billy a reassuring clap on the shoulder. This won't be a cakewalk, McAllister. But we'll expose her duplicity. And we'll do it by adhering to the regulations. The bait. The phone felt slick against Billy's ear. He leaned back in his creaky desk chair, forcing a lightness into his voice that didn't match the knot in his stomach. Hey Daisy. Just calling to see how you're doing. Everything good? Billy. Her voice was a syrupy sweetness that made his teeth ache. You know, just the usual. So busy. How's training? Oh, you know, brutal, he chuckled, trying to sound breezy. But I'm managing. Actually, I wanted to tell you something. Remember how Dad always said to diversify? Well, before I left, I put some money into, well, it's kind of a secret project. High risk, high reward, you know. He paused, holding his breath. The silence stretched, punctuated only by the hum of the refrigerator in his tiny apartment. Then, Daisy's tone shifted, the sugar replaced with a metallic tang. A secret project. What kind of project, Billy? You know you can tell me anything. He feigned reluctance. Oh, it's probably nothing. Just a little something I'm trying. Don't want to jinx it by talking about it too much. He could practically hear her mentally calculating. Don't be silly, Billy. I'm your wife. We share everything. And honestly, you've been sounding a little down lately. Is everything really all right? You know, finances can be so stressful. Maybe I could offer some advice. The cloying concern dripped from her words. Billy almost choked. Advice? From her? I'm fine, Daisy. Really? It's a tech startup. Very hush-hush. Dad always said to keep these things close to the vest. He could hear her tapping something, probably her manicured nails against her expensive desk. Tech, huh? Interesting. Well, just be careful, sweetie. You know how easily things can go wrong. Maybe when you're back, we can look at it together. Just to be safe. You know I only want what's best for us. Sure, Daisy. We can talk about it when I get back. He kept his voice even, masking the rage simmering beneath the surface. Gotta go. Drill sergeant's yelling my name. Love you. Love you too, Billy. Be careful. The line went dead. Billy slammed the phone down, the plastic cracking slightly. The bait was taken. Now, to reel her in. Cornered. The chipped porcelain of the teacup rattled in Daisy's hand as she watched Billy devour a plate of scrambled eggs. So, Mr. Abernathy, she began, her voice a shade too bright. He seems reliable. Billy swallowed a mouthful of eggs. Reliable as they come. Known him for years. Solid as a rock. He beamed, oblivious. Daisy forced a smile. And the paperwork? All official. All squared away. Don't you worry your pretty little head about it. He reached across the table, squeezing her hand. Smartest thing we ever did, Daisy girl. This is gonna set us up for life. As soon as he left for the docks, Daisy grabbed the phone. Her fingers trembled as she dialed Abernathy's number. Mr. Abernathy, it's Daisy McAllister. I need to withdraw some funds. A gruff voice answered. That's not how this works, Mrs. McAllister. The agreement is with Billy. He's the only one authorized. But it's an emergency, she pleaded, her voice rising. A real emergency. I need it now. Sorry, Mrs. McAllister. My hands are tied. The line went dead. Panic seized her. She paced the small living room, the faded floral wallpaper seeming to close in on her. She had to get to that money. It was her ticket out, her escape from this stifling life. The slam of the front door sent her heart leaping into her throat. Billy stood there, his face grimmer than she'd ever seen it. He held a crumpled piece of paper in his hand. What's this, Daisy? He asked, his voice low and dangerous. She recognized the stationery of the Gilded Lily, a boutique in town. It's nothing, Billy. Just a little something I was looking at. He unfolded the paper, his eyes scanning the list. A diamond bracelet. A fur coat. A trip to Bermuda. Thousands of dollars, Daisy. Thousands. Where'd you get the money to even look at these things? Tears welled in her eyes, the practiced performance she'd perfected over the years. I wanted to surprise you, Billy. I wanted to make you proud. He wasn't buying it. Don't insult me, Daisy. Just tell me the truth. He stepped closer, his calloused hands clenching. Cornered, she cracked. It's the investment, Billy. Abernathy. I needed it. I deserve it. The words tumbled out, a torrent of selfishness and desperation. His face crumpled. You what? You went behind my back. After everything I've done for you. The optimistic light in his eyes flickered and died, replaced by a stark, wounded disbelief. The air in the small room hung thick with the weight of her betrayal. A second chance. Daisy stared at the bank statement, the numbers swimming before her eyes. Her carefully crafted facade of indifference crumbled. A trust fund. For both of us. Billy nodded, his gaze unwavering. Grandma McAllister wasn't exactly a pauper. She set it up for me years ago, before. He trailed off, the unspoken before you cleaned me out, hanging heavy in the air. I was supposed to use it wisely, for our future. Apparently, I wasn't so wise about who I chose to share it with. The color drained from Daisy's face. The implications crashed down on her like a rogue wave. All the lies, the deceit, the calculated manipulation, for nothing. Worse than nothing. She jeopardized a future she hadn't even known existed, a future far grander than the fleeting luxuries she'd chased. Billy, she whispered, her voice thick with something that sounded suspiciously like genuine remorse. I didn't know. I swear. If I had. If you had known, would you have been honest? Billy asked, his voice soft but firm. Would you have suddenly developed a work ethic? Would you have been happy with a simple life, knowing this was here? Daisy looked down at her hands, twisting her rings nervously. The silence stretched, punctuated only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. Finally, she met his gaze, tears welling in her eyes. No, she admitted, the word barely audible. Probably not. I was stupid. Greedy. I don't know what I thought. I'm so sorry, Billy. I truly am. He watched her, searching for any sign of insincerity, any flicker of the old manipulative Daisy. But all he saw was regret, raw and vulnerable. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance. Okay, Billy said, taking a deep breath. Here's the deal. The trust fund is still there. Untouched, except for what you already. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Took. I'm willing to give you a second chance, Daisy. A real one. But it's not going to be easy. He continued, outlining his conditions. No more secrets, no more lies. She would get a job, any job, and prove she was willing to work for what she wanted. They would go to counseling, both individually and together. And most importantly, she had to earn back his trust, brick by agonizing brick. I don't know if we can fix this, Billy confessed, his voice laced with uncertainty. But I'm willing to try. Are you? Daisy nodded, tears streaming down her face. Yes, Billy. I'll do anything. I'll work harder than I ever have before. Just please don't give up on me. Billy looked at her, his heart a confusing mix of hope and trepidation. He wanted to believe her, desperately. But the road ahead was long and uncertain. He knew one thing for sure, this second chance wasn't just for Daisy. It was for him too. A chance to prove that even a fool could find love and maybe, just maybe, make it last.